There are days when I realize that cooking isn't simply about following a ready-made recipe. It's also about how attentively I apply those small little tips and tricks to make the dish truly complete and perfect. And today, I want to share that experience once again, starting from the very small steps in my familiar kitchen. Yet those steps are enough to create quick, refined, and appealing breakfasts that feel just like they came from a five-star restaurant. Let's get started. First comes the step of selecting the bananas. I once used bananas that were still a bit green, and the result was that the cake didn't have enough natural sweetness. After that experience, I learned my lesson. Only choose fully ripe bananas with tiny brown spots on the peel. That's when they're at their sweetest and most fragrant. To begin, I take 2 ripe bananas and lightly trim off both ends. Instead of peeling them completely right away, which can easily make the bananas too soft and mushy when slicing, I use a knife to make 2 straight scores along the prode. Length of the banana. Just score lightly, barely touching the peel, without cutting deep into the flesh. Then, peel it apart, section by section. This method helps the banana hold its shape perfectly and prevents it from getting smashed. Next, slice into rounds about 2 centimeters thick. Keeping the peel on while cutting is a small but very useful tip because the peel acts as support to keep the flesh steady and avoid it being crushed under the knife blade. I'm curious, where are you from? And what little kitchen tips do you have to make baked goods turn out perfect every time? Please comment below and share with me. Next, I prepare 2 chicken eggs and crack them into a large bowl. I usually tap the egg on a flat surface first, before opening it to minimize any shell fragments falling in. Then, I add 5 grams of salt and 50 grams of sugar. Don't worry if the salt seems a little more than usual. This subtle hint of saltiness keeps the cake from tasting overly sweet and makes the flavors more balanced and harmonious. Add the sugar early so it dissolves with the eggs. When whisked, the mixture becomes smooth and uniform. Just use a whisk or chopsticks to stir steadily in one direction. Don't whisk too vigorously. Whisking too hard creates lots of air bubbles. That's actually the secret to getting a beautifully soft, fine-textured cake base after baking. Once the mixture is smooth, I slowly pour in 200 milliliters of fresh milk. This step ensures the baked cake has just the right moisture level, not dry, yet still wonderfully tender inside. After that, I gradually sift 120 g of all-purpose flour into the mixture. This amount is perfect for creating a soft texture while keeping the cake light. Dumping it in directly makes lumps very likely, and the finished cake won't be as smooth. There was one time I rushed and skipped sifting the flour, and the cake that day wasn't as silky as I wanted. Ever since, I've made a point to be a bit more patient. Finally, I add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the mixture. The oil not only makes the cake softer, but also provides natural moisture, so it doesn't dry out as it cools. Continue stirring gently and evenly by hand. At this stage, the key is to ensure everything is fully incorporated, with no dry streaks of flour or lumps left at the bottom of the bowl. When the batter is ready, it should have a smooth, moderately thick consistency, not too dense, not too runny. Now, prepare the mold. Brush a thin layer of oil or line it with parchment paper, even if it's non-stick. This small step makes removing the cake much easier and keeps the bottom beautifully golden. I start arranging the banana slices in the mold. Don't pack them too tightly so hot air can circulate evenly during baking. Next, pour the batter into the mold and gently shake it so the batter spreads out naturally, helping the surface become flat and even. Then, I place the mold into the preheated air fryer at 160 degrees Celsius. Bake at 170 degrees Celsius for about 20–35 minutes. At this temperature, the cake cooks slowly and evenly, so the bananas at the bottom don't dry out too quickly. During baking, I try to avoid opening the air fryer too often. Every time you do, heat escapes and the cake might sink. If I want a deeper golden top, I just increase the temperature slightly in the last few minutes instead of baking at high heat from the beginning. What I love most is the moment I take the cake out. The wonderful aroma of ripe bananas mingling with eggs and milk fills the entire kitchen. But I've also learned not to cut the cake while it's still too hot. Let it rest for a few minutes so the structure sets. When sliced, each piece comes out neat and holds together without crumbling. Seeing those distinct banana slices embedded in the soft, fine crumb always gives me such a satisfying feeling. And perhaps the greatest joy isn't just savoring the warm cake, but the feeling of experimenting and gradually perfecting it, little by little, right here in my familiar kitchen. Besides this absolutely delicious baked banana egg cake, I also have another recipe that egg lovers will really enjoy: crispy fried sausage bread rolls. First, I prepare slices of fresh, soft bread, not too airy or spongy. Place them on a cutting board and gently use a knife to trim off the crusts around the edges. If you don't have any special tools, a little trick I often use is to take a bottle, like a glass bottle, and roll it over the bread slice, pressing lightly to flatten it into a thin, even layer. Quick, convenient, and perfectly uniform. Next, place the sausage onto the bread and roll it up carefully so the bread wraps snugly around the sausage, creating an even coating. To hold the roll in place, I use a small toothpick to secure it just enough to keep it from unraveling while handling. Then, use a knife to trim off any excess bread sticking out from both ends of the sausage. This gives it a neat shape and prevents extra bits from burning or getting in the way during cooking. Every time I finish rolling one, I always feel a little thrill. Now, crack 2 eggs into a bowl, add a pinch of salt and a bit of ground black pepper. Use a fork to lightly whisk the eggs until the yolks and whites are fully blended into a smooth, even mixture. At the same time, I prepare a plate of breadcrumbs. Once everything is ready, I roll each bread sausage wrap through the egg mixture, coating it evenly so the egg adheres to all sides. Then, continue rolling it through the breadcrumbs to create a light, crispy outer layer. This step is very important because the breadcrumbs help the roll turn beautifully golden and crisp, while also making it more satisfying to bite into. Next, prepare the air fryer. Line it with parchment paper or use a small tray so the rolls don't stick. Then lightly spray a thin layer of oil so the finished rolls come out shiny and golden. Place the rolls in the air fryer. And cook at 180 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. When they're done, take them out, remove the toothpicks, and you'll see beautifully golden, crispy rolls with a smooth egg coating and juicy, tender sausage inside. I usually enjoy them right away. While still warm, the crispy breadcrumbs crackle with every bite, blending perfectly with the savory, rich sausage and the creamy, flavorful egg. It's a simple yet delightful experience that turns everyday ingredients into something truly special.